Hello, in this presentation we will cover the correction of a sales receipt within QuickBooks Online. We will have a comprehensive QuickBooks Online course soon, if not available yet. We also have a comprehensive Excel course which complements the QuickBooks courses and a QuickBooks Pro desktop version course you can find at the link below. We will have a comprehensive QuickBooks Online course soon, if not available yet. We also have a comprehensive Excel course which complements the QuickBooks courses and a QuickBooks Pro desktop version course you can find at the link below. Here we are on the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're going to be looking at an error and correcting an error within sales receipts and receipt payments. We're going to find that error, identify the error through the reports, then think of ways to adjust the problem, and think of pros and cons to adjusting these problems. These finding errors and then adjusting errors and finding ways to fix them is one of the areas where we really need to understand what the software is doing, so it's good practice to troubleshoot what is going on. In order to see what we're going to do, we want to first run a report. So we're going to go to the reports down here, select a report. We want to see the financial statement, the balance sheet. So I'm going to type in balance sheet and select the balance sheet. And then we're going to say the date range is going to be from 01/01/21 to 01/31/21. And we will run that report. So this is the time period that we're working this problem through. I'm going to look through and identify the area where we're having an issue and then troubleshoot and see if we can fix the problem going forward. We're going to run this report, and there we have this report. Now what we're looking at here is going to be this uncategorized asset account is $20,920. The concept here was to put it in the uncategorized assets and then to use that to deposit in the bank in the grouping where we're going to the bank with those deposits, so that the grouping within our system in terms of deposits is the same as on the bank statement. Now, the QuickBooks usually has an account called Undeposited Funds to do that, and they still have that. It wasn't set up on this system. We tried to go back and correct that in prior presentations, so hopefully you don't have this problem if you're working through the problem. But if you do have this, or if you see this in another area and you have something in uncategorized assets, and now you want to make a deposit, but you'd like to group it a little bit differently, you'd like to use that undeposited funds feature within QuickBooks to group it a bit differently, then we can go through and make adjustments to these. So in order to see that, let's first look at a deposit and then we'll go back here. So I'm going to go back to the plus item up here and pretend we're going to make a deposit. And we're going to go down to bank deposit. And typically here we would see the undeposited funds listed out, and we can kind of check off the undeposited funds. Because it's set up as an other current asset, not as an undeposited funds, we can't make that adjustment. So if we were to troubleshoot this problem, a couple things we can do. One, we can try to see if we can change the account type to be undeposited and see if that will make any changes. When doing so, we got to be careful if it links to other accounts because it could cause other difficulties. So to see that first step, if we close out of here and we were to try to change that account type so it shows up there, we could try to go to the accounting on the left-hand side and find that undeposited funds account. Here's the undeposited funds, and see if we could edit this information. This is undeposited. This is uncategorized asset, and then we set up this undeposited fund. So uncategorized has that $20,920. If you go in here, you could try to edit this and create the subcategory to be undeposited funds. Now it's not going to let us do that. It's going to say that there's problems with us doing that. We can't change the subcategory. So that's the first thing you could try to do. You want to be really careful if you're changing subcategories, so it might not be something that you even want to attempt in some cases, because the links could have problems if you change the subcategory. The other option we can try to do is, let's see if we can set up an undeposited fund as we've done in the past. Set up a new account with undeposited funds. If we look at this setup, then we're going to edit this. We have the other current asset subcategory undeposited funds. So we set up that account, and really what we would like to have now is this amount in here. Now we could do that with a journal entering the whole amount over there. And that has some pros and cons because it doesn't deal with prior data. It doesn't make us go back into the data and change anything. It would be from this point forward, and we can say, hey, this is the problem that happened. We'll make the journal entry. That is probably actually the most proper way to do this, because then you have the paper trail of what we did before, and we have what happened now. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to do what QuickBooks allows us to do, and try to go back in there and see if we can adjust the entries that made up this 20,920 to now be recording in this account. Again, if you've been working through with the problem, hopefully you put it all into undeposited funds as we go. But if not, or if you run into this problem, this type of issue, then this is one thing QuickBooks allows you to do. It allows you to go back into prior transactions and make adjustments. There's pros and cons to that. You don't always want to do that because it could distort or change data to financial statements and linked information. But if you're careful with that, that's one of the pros and cons that QuickBooks has. So to do that, let's go back to reports. How could we do that? Well, we can go to reports, and we can kind of go backwards from the reports to each item. So let's see how that could work. If we go to the bank, we're going to go to the balance sheet. So we'll select the balance sheet. And the date range, once again, 01/01/21 to 01/31/21. That's the range we will be working in. And if we scroll down here, we will then find this uncategorized asset. Now, we don't see the other account, undeposited funds, because it's 0. If there was something in it, we would see it. What we want to do is move this amount to undeposited funds, another current asset. It's just another current asset account, but we would like to have it have that feature that would link to the depositing section. So I'm going to select this item, the 20,920, and we see all the information here that makes this up. It's a payment, and sales receipt. So what if we just go into each of these by drilling down on each of these and then changing the undeposited fund account, changing the uncategorized fund to undeposited fund. It will change things retroactively in past transactions, not always something we want to do from a paper trail standpoint, but it might work in terms of a QuickBooks standpoint. So let's see what happens here. We're going to go to the 5,000. It's going to uncategorized asset. If we change that to undeposited funds, remember what this is doing is it's a sales receipt from Anderson. So that means we got payment, in this case a check, and it hasn't gotten to the bank yet. So we didn't put it into the checking account, we put it into uncategorized asset. We're going to take it out of uncategorized asset, reissue this, and just put it into undeposited funds and save that. So we'll save that, and that has been saved. If I close this back out, then we go to the second item here, payment, 7,200. And we'll do the same thing. It's a received payment. We got a payment, cash in this case, hasn't gone to the bank yet. We put it into uncategorized assets. Let's change this to undeposited funds. And then we'll just save that, and we'll save it. And then we'll close this out. Next one, we've got the 8,000 payment. We're going to select that. We're going to go into, this is a payment from Smith. We haven't deposited it yet. We put it into uncategorized assets. Let's change that to undeposited funds. We'll save that. Yes. And we'll close this and do this one more time. The 420. This is a sales receipt. I'm going to select that item. This means that we made a sale, an invoice, kind of not like an invoice, except instead of going to accounts receivable, we got payment at the point and got cash, and we put it into that uncategorized asset again. Let's change that to undeposited funds and save, or let's just save that. And then we'll close this out. And we'll see that the subcategory, the transaction detail, is now nothing in there because we cleared it all out. If we go back to the main report, back to the balance sheet, then, and scroll down, now we see that undeposited funds account, not the uncategorized asset account, having that 20,920 in it. So that's one way we can make that adjustment. Again, you got to be really careful when you make that adjustment. From a paper trail standpoint, you probably want to make a journal entry and adjust the information out so you can see everything that happened. But from a QuickBooks standpoint, you can go in and make those prior period those prior adjustments by actually adjusting the forms, and you typically have more leeway than in other software to do that, which is a benefit and could be a cost. So now let's take a look at the deposit sheet. If we go back to this icon up here and we were to record bank deposits, we then have this nice little feature that allows us to check these off. So instead of us, having to put the amount in that we're depositing from the uncategorized section, we can just check these off, and then we can group them in however format that we went to the bank in. Probably, if we were just going to the bank every day, we would deposit the full amount. We would take anything that's undeposited, go to the bank and deposit it. But if we're grouping it in any other format, this is really nice because we can just check these off and we can deposit it in any format that we hope to have. And that's helpful because it helps us to tie out what the bank statement will say to what we have. So again, if you're following along with this problem, hopefully you avoided that by putting it into undeposited funds from the beginning. But I thought we'd put this in here. Troubleshooting this is going to be useful to do. This type of troubleshooting is useful to consider in this case and related types of cases.